Okay, so I just want to use some time available to us to look at estates and interests in a bit more depth and start to show you a way to map across to where we're heading over the next few weeks together. So we have some time available to us, lecture time available for us to cover this, which I planned to work through with you as a document. So this PDF will be going up into this week's documents, week 2 documents, and you'll be able to see how you can format yourself to move things across and recognize whether something is an estate or an interest in land, whether that estate or interest might be legal or equitable, what documentary evidence you would need to protect that estate or interest in land, and then where we'll be heading next would be to attach and affix that estate or interest to the land at land registry so that the world at large can see that that person exists. So this week in seminars in class, we've been looking at attaching and affixing physical items to the land in order to transfer or pass that across to a new purchaser. What we're about to do is to look at these estates or interests in land as similarly being part of land law and similarly attaching and affixing to the land, becoming part of it and transferring across to the new owner potentially, and or protecting the party that's involved. So if you are the tenant who has a legal estate, who has the right document, and who has entered it at land registry, you are visible. You have protected yourself. You've done everything you needed to do in order to tell the world at large that you exist. If you are a bank with a legal interest and you have the right documentary evidence, and again you have protected that legal charge at land registry, everyone can see you. You will be there, you will be identified, and the world at large can see you. As I've already started alluding to, the bank are the one party that can put themselves on land registry twice. They will have done this as well, a restriction on the register. So that's where we need to go, and I need you to be able to follow me on that path, and this document will hopefully help you. I haven't wanted to introduce it from the get-go. It's something I've wanted to deliver the lectures initially in and then help you see that there's a format for this that I'm going to work through with you. So the estate, the slice of time in land, that's what we looked at previously. That's what we've looked at in the seminars that we've covered together. So the fee simple, absolute, and possession being akin to ownership. The term of years absolute being akin to a tenancy. Rights in or over land that are capable of being legal. The two charges from the bank, the two charges that are available to a landlord, the rent charge not being applicable in our cases, and an easement that is like a freely given one or a time specific one. I've put those in order because I find it simpler to think about whether the interested party is a bank, a landlord, or has an easement. So I haven't listed them A to E for a reason. It's just in my mind it makes sense to think about banks, landlords, and wanderers in that way. Everybody else then becoming an interest that can only ever be equitable under section 1.3. So when we say everything else, these are the people that we mean: equitable easements, a restrictive covenant, an estate contract, a promise to sell land, a fee tell, the ability to stay on land for the rest of your life, a beneficial interest under land. Those are the other interests that are only ever going to be capable of being equitable in nature. Hopefully then, after the lecture that I've just delivered, you'll see that the documentation that's required, the documentary evidence that we're going to need as land lawyers to look for, is going to be dependent on our ability to map across. So our need for a deed, if you like, and or another form of documentary evidence will be subject to what you've discovered in the previous two boxes. What estate or interest was it? Was it capable of being legal or only ever could be equitable? And then in order to become legal, has it had the right document attached to it to make it legal? So a deed. Or if it only ever could be equitable, has it been put into writing some way under Section 2 of the Law of Property Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1989? So that's the beauty and importance really of having a grid format or a document like this to act as a guide for you and help you move forwards so that you can see how to navigate the structure and system that land law imposes upon these people. Hopefully within the seminars you've started to see that the superficies solo sedit means that what attaches and affixes to the land comes with it. The remedy in land is always in rem, meaning it attaches and affixes to the thing, the land itself. So a new purchaser is taking the land with the physical attributes that come with it, also taking it with the interests or estates that have been attached to it. So these people attach and affix to the land. The remedy is in rem, meaning they get to stay on the land, they get the thing. So you as land lawyers need to be able to navigate that first box and understand who those people are, what they look like: an owner, a tenant, a bank, a landlord, somebody wandering. Or those other equitable ones, another type of promissory easement that wasn't given in a very clear manner, a promise to restrict the use of a land, a promise to sell the land, a promise to be able to stay on the land for a long time, or a promise of some sort of sense of ownership in the land because of payment or contribution. So those are the sorts of people you're going to see. That's what they will be dressed up as for you. You will see somebody referred to as an owner, somebody referred to as the holder of an easement or a bank, and then you need to be able to map across looking at their position in law or equity. Section 1.1, giving us very clear only two forms of legal estate. Section 1.2, giving very clear only 5 forms of legal estates, legal interests, Everything else then becoming equitable, an equitable interest. The lecture that we've just covered has then considered documenting that situation, documenting that relationship, that if it's legal, that we are looking for a deed as lawyers. And the lecture looked at what a deed means, what a deed looks like, how it's executed, and the formalities that are required. The only exception being, as you'll see up there, a lease that falls under 3 years. So that's the exception to the need for a deed in a legal estate or interest scenario. That would be the only time we don't need a deed, is when we've got a short-term lease. As you'll see, we still as property lawyers need that writing element. We need to have some articulation or identification of the parties as having formalize this in some way. This isn't like other areas of law. A verbal agreement isn't enough. We're not dealing with stuff and things here. We are dealing with land. The action is in rem. It's serious and has impact, so we have to have more formality to it. The only exception is if it's an implied trust, and in that scenario, because it's usually familial or usually cohabiting, a relationship of love and trust, we don't expect people to have behaved that way in those scenarios under Section 53(1)(b) of the Law of Property Act 1925. There is some leeway on that. So I want to provide you with this document to act as a framework for you to start mapping these people across. You can see who they are, you can see whether it might be legal or equitable, you can see what type of documentary evidence they need to protect that and show the world that they have that formal agreement with that party. Our next phase after that, and where we'll spend a couple of weeks together, will be then looking at how they tell the world at large that that's what they have. How do they affix and appear at land registry so that the conveyancers can go to land registry and can identify or articulate that these people exist and that the formalities have been met to protect their interests so that they can affix and attach to the land.